Discover 7 sinister Halloween party tales, spine-chilling secrets that will haunt your night. The sun dipped below the perfect suburban skyline of Oak Ridge, and a cold shiver danced through the manicured lawns, whispering clues of dark secrets lurking beneath the surface. Sarah, a frazzled single mom, felt the pressure mount as she wrestled with festive costumes for her kids, Tyler and Mia. Laughter echoed from neighbors gathering for the annual Halloween block party, but an unease permeated the air, tightening her chest. Mr. Jensen had lingered in her mind, his comments about dark secrets echoing ominously in her ears. She sipped her coffee with shaky hands, stealing glances at his dim, shadowy house, its mysteries coiling around her like fog. Accompanying her children dressed as a vampire and which felt almost unbearable. They were ready for fun, but uncertainty loomed, casting shadows over cheerful pumpkins. Halloween was supposed to be light-hearted, yet spectral dread clung to her like cobwebs. The festivities covered the truth, a facade hiding something ghastly, perhaps something that sent others scuttling away from Mr. Jensen. As laughter broke with the night, a gnawing fear crept in. The once joyous sounds now twisted into something unnerving. Sarah's heart sank as she lost sight of her children weaving through a labyrinth of decorations. Panic bubbled inside her as she texted them, hoping for a reply, each second more agonizing than the last. Then, finally, her phone buzzed. Mia's frantic message read, "Mom, we're by Mr. Jensen's house. There are creepy things in his decorations. I think we found a real ghost." A heady panic thrummed in Sarah's veins. She raced towards Mr. Jensen's home, a malevolent energy prickling at the nape of her neck. Vibrant jack-o'-lanterns flickered ominously, bunching into a gang of night terrors. Enigmatic shadows crept along the path, and her children's earlier giggles faded into the whispering darkness, morphing into muted fear. "Where are you?" she hissed, her voice barely a whisper, drowned by the trees' rustle. A tangible chill settled as the folklore of missing pets and ancient secrets hummed through her mind. Was the joyful laughter just a cover to hide their complacency, their oblivion? She pushing through, emboldened by her growing dread, hoping her children were merely caught in a childish game. Yet every house revealed its own monstrous embellishments, the grotesque turning ever so slightly sinister, the decorations blinking like eyes in the night. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As the clock inched towards midnight, the tension escalated, her heart racing against the backdrop of the night's festivities. With every step, the familiar faces of her neighbors morphed into eerie masks, their laughter ringing hollow in her ears. A shudder clawed its way up her spine when she considered the reality lurking beneath their smiles. Suddenly, her worst fear came crashing in. Without warning, Sarah discovered her children huddled in the corner of Mr. Jensen's yard, terror-stricken, wide-eyed, staring at the grotesque tableau around them. "What have you found?" she gasped, the very air around them thickening into something malevolent. There, in the shadows, lay the dangers of a neighborhood she thought she knew. Would she uncover the truth before the midnight clock struck, exposing the real horrors hidden behind friendly exteriors? The chilling mystery deepened, pulling her into a web of darkness she never anticipated. The moon hung high, casting an eerie glow that made the world seem both bright and dark at once. Sarah's breath tightened as she drew closer to her children, each step weighed down by 1,000 unseen eyes. The yard, once a cheerful display of Halloween spirit, was now a nightmarish scene. Amidst the decorations, something shifted, a flutter of movement that had nothing to do with the wind. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest like a trapped animal. As she took a tentative step forward, the yard unfolded into a grotesque panorama. Life-sized figures, skeletons and ghouls were positioned as if involved in some sacrilegious rite, their eyes hollow and accusing. "Mom!" Mia cried, her voice barely piercing the heavy air. "Look!" Sarah's gaze followed her daughter's trembling finger. In the shadows, a figure loomed, partially obscured by ghastly decorations. The remnants of what might once have been a scarecrow emerged, but now a tattered jacket hung limply and caked in mud. It looked almost human, its face concealed beneath a hooded cloak, the fabric worn away to reveal mottled, decaying skin. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, her voice trembling. Tyler clutched Mia's hand, eyes wide with a fear so profound it sent a wave of panic through Sarah. She felt the ground beneath her shift, the grass growing damp and cold beneath her feet. Mr. Jensen's house loomed closer, the shadows playing tricks, whispering against her sanity. Then, as if summoned by her fear, Mr. Jensen appeared at the door. His silhouette was stark against the light behind him, eyes gleaming with something she couldn't quite grasp. "Kids shouldn't wander too far," he called out, voice smooth yet unsettling, slithering into her thoughts. A hot wave of anger surged through Sarah, mixed with an instinctual dread. "What are you doing to the children?" She half screamed, half choked as she stepped protectively in front of Mia and Tyler. "Just showing them the magic of Halloween," he replied, that same disconcerting smile plastered across his face, yet his eyes lacked any warmth. Instead, they flickered like candle flames, erratic and threatening. She could feel it, the atmosphere charged with something dark, something alive. The wind shifted, bringing an odor of decay that wrapped around Sarah. She saw it, then, behind Mr. Jensen, a shadow darting away, almost too quick to catch. Something moved within the house, a thrill of anticipation tinged with horror. Then it struck her, the stories from the old neighborhood, the ones whispered under the flickering porch lights, missing children, strange disappearances. "Mom, we want to go home," Mia whimpered, her voice trembling as she clung to Sarah's leg. She was losing them to this frightful charade. "No!" She spat at Jensen. "This isn't right." Suddenly, the decorations seemed to come alive. The mounds of fake leaves rustled violently, as if something lurked just beneath the surface. The jack-o'-lanterns flickered ominously, illuminating the space with a sickly orange glow, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to dance, mocking her. Without thinking, Sarah reached for her children. But before she could pull them to safety, the darkness erupted. Shapes emerged, swirling around the yard, emerging from the very soil beneath them. Her breath caught as she stumbled backward, panic clawing at her throat. "Run! Run!" She shouted, but the words felt like leaden stones, heavy with dread. Sarah turned to bolt, pulling her children with her, but a firm grip locked around her wrist, pulling her back. She gasped, staring into those hollow eyes of Mr. Jensen, now so much closer. "You should have left well enough alone, Sarah." A bone-chilling sound filled the air, something that sounded like distant laughter rippled through the darkness, merging with the whispers of the night. And then, silence fell, a heavy, oppressive silence that threatened to swallow them whole. Before Sarah could react, a figure broke through the trees at the edge of Mr. Jensen's yard, rushing toward them. But was it a savior or another monster? In that moment, uncertainty twisted into terror, and Sarah knew this night was far from over. But what would the dawn reveal? The figure rushed closer, breaking through the shadows, and Sarah could see its features emerging through the darkness: disheveled hair, wild eyes, and a face gaunt and pale. It was a woman, her clothes tattered and filthy. "Help me! Please, help!" She gasped, but the eyes that darted nervously around betrayed a deeper understanding of terror. "Mom, who is she?" Tyler whispered, clutching Mia's hand tighter. Before Sarah could respond, the woman stumbled forward, eyes wide. "You need to leave." He but her words were swallowed by an unnatural wind that howled, sending leaves spiraling into the air like lost spirits. Mr. Jensen's laughter echoed behind them, chilling and cruel. Oh, it's too late for that. He called out, stepping fully into the pale light that flickered ominously from the porch. As he advanced, shadows deepened around him, swirling like a living thing. The trees creaked and groaned, the night holding its breath. Sarah felt a tightening in her chest, a primal urge to flee, to fight the instinct that kept her rooted in place. "Don't listen to him," the woman shouted, stepping protectively in front of Sarah and her children. "He lures you in with tricks, traps. He's not who you think he is." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, desperation tightening her voice. Mr. Jensen's grin widened, revealing teeth as sharp as broken glass. "It's all in the spirit of Halloween, darling. Just some playful fun for my friends and me." The shadows behind him shifted ominously, as if in agreement, writhing with a life of their own. "Your friends?" Sarah was confused. "There are no." A sickening laugh erupted from the yard itself, cutting off her words. The lifeless figures standing among the decorations seemed to twitch, and Sarah could almost imagine them whispering, their mouths moving without sound. "Mom, I don't want to be here. Please." Mia's voice trembled as she leaned into Sarah, eyes wide with fear. Tyler, clenching his fists, shifted uneasily back and forth, his mind racing for escape routes. "Run. We have to go," Sarah cried. Gripping her children tightly, she felt the pull of the darkness around them, an unseen force trying to drag them back toward Mr. Jensen and that twisted yard. The woman, still in front of them, flung her arm toward the woods. "This way. Move." Without a moment's hesitation, Sarah surged forward, dragging Mia and Tyler, who followed only because they knew they had no choice. They plunged into the thick shadows of the woods, the stench of rot and decay filling her lungs. Every crack of a branch beneath her feet sounded like a warning, echoing in the dark. As they raced deeper into the trees, Sarah glanced back. The flickering lights of Mr. Jensen's yard faded, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. But the laughter, that eerie laughter, followed them, a persistent, haunting echo that sent shivers crawling up her spine. Suddenly, the woman stopped, turning to face them, wild eyes flashing. "You have to listen. He has the children." "What children?" Sarah screamed, in equal parts fear and frustration. But something shifted around them. The shadows grew thicker, more menacing, wrapping around Sarah and her children like creeping vines. The woman's face transformed, revealing a deep sorrow that resonated in the silence, and then it all went dark. A tangle of limbs, voices blending into a cacophony of fear and desperation. Then, the shadows released a piercing scream. Sarah fell backward, her heart racing, and darkness devoured them whole, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. In that silence, a new realization dawned on Sarah. There was more to this night than just survival. A chilling connection twisted in her gut, rippling with the sound of distant laughter. What exactly had they stumbled into? The darkness still called, beckoning them back toward the nightmare. But was there a way out, or simply deeper into the horror? The darkness waited, hungry for answers. The darkness pressed around them like a suffocating cloak, and Sarah's heart raced with panic. It felt as if the shadows themselves conspired to keep them ensnared, banding together to smother any chance of escape. She blinked, trying to penetrate the blackness, but saw nothing, not a glimmer, not a flicker. "Mom?" Mia's voice trembled, small and terrified, barely breaking through the oppressive silence. Tyler was rigid beside her, and she felt his breath quicken, mirroring her own escalating fear. "Stay close," Sarah urged, her voice steady despite the rising tide of dread. "We just need to find light." She pushed forward, her instincts screaming for them to escape this horrific trap. Suddenly, the shadows stirred, swirling as if animated by a malicious wind. From the depths, a rustle echoed, and with it came a whisper, a voice so soft and deadly that it felt like ice in her veins. "Leave, now, before it's too late." "Who are you?" Sarah called out, echoing her fear into the void. "Show yourself." The darkness seemed to chuckle in response, an almost joyous sound that made her stomach churn. "Mama, I'm scared." Mia whimpered, her small hand squeezing Sarah's tightly. "Shoo, I know, baby. We'll get through this," Sarah said, fighting back the flood of terror threatening to overwhelm her. Somewhere within the shadows, Mr. Jensen's laughter twisted through the air like a ghostly reminder of their pursuer. Then, with a snap like thunder, the trees began to shift, revealing a narrow path splitting through the underbrush. It beckoned them forward like an unwelcome friend. "This way," urged the woman's voice again, rising from the blackness. Sarah hesitated, sensing the danger but understanding they had little choice. "Let us go," she whispered, taking a tentative step forward despite her instincts. The children followed, their small feet making soft, shuffling noises on the damp earth. As they walked, the laughter faded but left an unsettling resonance in its wake. The further they ventured into the woods, the more surreal their surroundings became. Distorted faces began sprouting from the trees, twisted expressions frozen in silent screams, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Sarah tried to shake the images from her mind, focusing on the path ahead. "Mom!" Tyler shouted suddenly, stopping dead in his tracks. Sarah turned, eyes wild with fear. "What's that?" Ahead, a flickering light appeared, wavering like a candle's flame. Gradually, it illuminated an unsettling scene, a clearing filled with what looked like children vulnerable, lost, and eerily still. They were gathered around an altar made of twisted branches, dressed in haunting costumes that mirrored the figures Sarah had seen creeping toward them at Mr. Jensen's yard. "Mama, are they okay?" Mia's voice cracked. Fear twisted Sarah's insides as she bared her teeth against the urge to flee. No, they're not," she breathed, horror flooding her senses. "We have to." Without warning, a figure lunged from the trees to her left. It was a child, wild-eyed and dirty, with matted hair and a scream etched onto his face. "You have to run. It's a trap." His voice was a string of desperation, but the shadows around him coiled tightly, pulling him back into obscurity before Sarah could react. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline igniting her limbs. She spun around, dragging Mia and Tyler with her. "We need to go. Now!" But as they turned, the darkness around them congealed, moving as if alive. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony rising to a fever pitch. "Stay, it's safe here, you'll join them soon. Don't listen. Keep moving." Sarah cried, the children clinging to her as they sprinted into the encroaching gloom. With every step they took, it felt like the forest was shifting and closing in, the branches snapping at their heels like ravenous beasts. Ahead, the flicker of light pulsed irregularly, a maddening rhythm enticing yet terrifying. Could they escape? Or were they bound for a darker fate, tangled in a web spun from the very nightmares they sought to flee? As the laughter echoed once more, chilling and distant, Sarah knew the children were not the only ones in danger. It was a night filled with more than just tricks and treats, it was a hunt, and revenge was the prize. But what awaited them at the end of this twisted road? The shadows whispered secrets she wasn't ready to hear, clawing at the edges of her sanity. Was there any way out of this madness, or would they all belong to the shadows before the night was done? The branches crackled beneath their hurried footsteps, a cacophony that cut through the night air. Sarah felt the chill of the wind bite at her skin, as if the trees themselves were trying to pull her back, wrapping her in their cold embrace. "Run!" she urged, her heart pounding like a wild drum in her chest. Mia's small hands trembled against Sarah's grip. "Mom, I can't!" Tyler shouted, trying to keep up, his breath coming out in frantic bursts. The whispers followed them, a haunting echo threading through the night. "Stay, it's safe, you'll join them soon." Just as they turned a corner, the flickering light they had seen before vanished abruptly. The darkness swallowed them whole. Panic tightened Sarah's throat. She could hardly see 3 feet ahead of them, it was as if the gloom had thickened like a dense fog. "Where are we?" Tyler's voice cracked, panic evident in his tone. "Shush, we need to listen," Sarah whispered, feeling a mix of outrage and fear. She didn't want to think about the children in costumes or what might still be lurking in those shadows. Suddenly, the sound of rustling leaves erupted to their right, drawing their attention. A figure emerged, no taller than Mia. It was another child, grimy and disheveled, with dirt smeared across his face. "Follow me," he urged, his eyes wide, frantic with desperation. But the shadows flickered, dragging him back again before they could fully comprehend what was happening. "Don't trust anyone," Sarah hollered, her voice trembling. It felt as if the very trees were listening, intent on their capture. They pressed on, the smell of damp earth filling their lungs. Hope flickered within her heart, but it was quickly extinguished each time another whisper licked at her ears, promising safety in surrender. "They'll find you won't escape this." The ground ahead seemed to ripple, shifting underfoot, and Sarah felt like they were moving through a nightmare, one that wouldn't end. "Mama, I see something," Mia cried, pointing ahead. In the distance, a glowing orb pulsed like a heartbeat. It drew them close, but dread filled Sarah's gut as they closed in on it. It was a lantern, hanging from a gnarled branch, but beneath it lay a grotesque tableau. An array of dolls were arranged around the base, their eyes wide, unblinking. Each doll was dressed in frayed costumes, resembling the children in the clearing. In the center of the doll circle lay something horrifying, a heart, beating slowly, rhythmically, as if waiting for someone to come and claim it. "Mom, what is that?" Tyler whispered, stepping back, eyes wide with fear. "It's not real," Sarah reassured them, though the fear in her own heart was a roaring beast. "We need to go. Now." But a figure blocked their exit, towering over them. It was the silhouette of a man, face obscured by shadows. "You can't leave. The night has just begun. There are games to play, children to collect." His voice oozed malice, drawing closer with each word. The children screamed as Sarah pulled them back, fumbling for an escape. But the shadows twisted, forming a wall of darkness that quivered in delight, consuming the last of their hope. Sarah's heart raced in her chest, pounding fiercely against her ribcage as she felt something icy brush against her. Then came the laughter, high-pitched and cruel, echoing around them. "Join us, join now, it's the only way to survive." With strength born from sheer desperation, Sarah gritted her teeth and yanked the kids back towards an opening she spotted. They stumbled, the darkness closing in, a tangible force, bleeding shadows that threatened to trap them in a never-ending void. Together, they dashed toward the sliver of light, but would they ever reach it? Or was it just another trick in this wicked game of fate? "What do we do?" Tyler cried, fear spilling over into his words. Suddenly, the whisper returned, clearer now, echoing with sinister delight. "The price is steep, but are you willing to pay?" For a heartbeat, Sarah hesitated, the weight heavy on her chest. What price could be worse than surrendering to this night of horrors? With her decision made, she turned to her children, determination igniting within her. "Whatever the price, we won't pay it." But would courage be enough against the depths of this evil? Their next steps would determine whether they truly escaped or fell into darkness forever. They charged forward, the sliver of light flickering like a heartbeat against the encroaching dark. With each step, the shadows hissed and writhed, hungry for flesh, for fear, for them. The laughter continued, echoes of madness blending with the whispers, wrapping around Sarah like a noose. "Over there," Mia cried, pointing to a narrow path that sliced through the thicket. It was a flicker of escape in a dense dark sea. Sarah took a deep breath, her instincts clamoring to move. "Go! Quick!" Grabbing her children's hands, they plunged into the narrow gap, branches snapping against their arms like whip cracks. The air felt thick, cloying, as if the darkness was alive, pressing in on them, squeezing the hope they held. "Mom, I can't breathe." Tyler gasped, his face pale, error etched in his eyes. "We're almost through," Sarah urged, the words tasting of desperation. Just a little further behind them, the shadows stirred, dark tendrils stretching toward their backs, whispering promises of warmth and safety. But Sarah pressed on, her heart pounding, each beat a desperate fight against the encroaching tide. Finally, they broke free into a small clearing, the moonlight spilling over them like a protective blanket. But their relief was short-lived. The trees closed in tighter, looking almost menacing in the pale light. Ghostly figures peeked from behind each trunk, their hollow eyes glinting with hunger. "Mama, what are those?" Mia whispered, clinging tightly to her mother's arm. "Those are not our friends," Sarah murmured back, realizing the danger had morphed but not dissipated. Something was inherently wrong about their surroundings. The whispers became clearer now, echoing their own fears, twisting their thoughts. "Perception is reality." Become one of us. A chill gripped Sarah's spine as she scanned the perimeter. Just ahead, more dolls lay scattered amongst the underbrush, their lifeless faces turned upward as if seeking salvation. Each seemed tailored to her children, adorned in costumes mirroring those from the party. She shook her head violently. "No, we need to get out of here now." Without warning, the ground trembled beneath them. The heart, still pulsing somewhere not far behind, thudded in rhythm with the tremors, a ghostly drum calling to them. It was a heartbeat, solid and alive and resonating in the air. "Over there. We can climb the ridge," Tyler yelled, pointing to a steep incline that rose sharply from the clearing. "Go," Sarah urged, pushing her children ahead, dread high in her throat. They scrambled, fingers slipping in the damp soil. Each step up felt like a surrender to the tight grip of the dark that beckoned them. Halfway up, a child's laughter floated through the air, eerily familiar yet disturbingly distant. It seemed to bounce back from the trees, a mocking echo of childhood innocence turned sinister. "Join us, it's fun." The ground shuddered again. A chill swept through the air, turning the hairs on Sarah's neck to ice. Terrified, she turned back to look at Mia and Tyler, her two anchors in this storm of horrors. "Don't listen to them," she shouted, her voice desperate. "Keep climbing." But as they continued, the shadows around them thickened, swirling together like a living blanket, whispering promises that echoed their own thoughts. Sarah felt her resolve slipping, the weight of it heavy and smothering. "Mom, I'm scared," Mia whimpered, eyes wide, glancing back at the clearing where many forms danced in and out of the shadows, beckoning them closer. "Me too. But we can't stop." Just as they reached the top of the ridge, a blinding light erupted from below them. Startled, they turned, but it was too late. The shadows lunged, coiling around their ankles, pulling them back down into the void. The heartbeat quickened, reverberating in their chests the promise of darkness entwined with a desperate craving for light. "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice tearing through the night as she pulled against the force. But the darkness laughed, the chilling sound enveloping them, pushing them toward a precipice from which there was no return. In a moment of paralyzing fear, she exchanged a panicked glance with Tyler. "We have to jump." But before she could react, the shadows surged closer, drowning them in an abyss of uncertainty. Would they leap into the unknown, or be swallowed whole by the darkness that sought to claim them? As the ground beneath their feet shattered into inky blackness, Sarah realized the real terror wasn't the darkness, it was what lay beyond it waiting watching. Was the heartbeat growing closer, or had it become a part of them? "Fight it!" she shouted, their fates hanging by a thread, the next moment could seal their doom. But would they find the courage to escape, or would they finally succumb to the night? The moment hung like a blade above them. Sarah inhaled sharply as the ground crumbled, disintegrating beneath their feet. The very darkness they feared was eager to welcome them. With a primal instinct, she lunged forward, dragging Tyler and Mia with her into the void. They collided into the damp softness of the forest floor below, twisting together in a panic. Mud clung to their skin, mingling with fear. "Are we alive?" Tyler's voice cracked, a whisper suffocated by the heavy air filled with dread. "Seems like it," Sarah managed, her chest heaving. The light from the ridge flickered above them, just out of reach, as the darkness clawed and writhed around their bodies. The heartbeat thudded louder now, echoing in their ears, intertwining with the sinister whispers that danced around them. Join us," they called, coaxing them back with an alluring ferocity. "Don't listen!" Sarah screamed, forcing her voice above the cacophony. She fought against the creeping shadows that threatened to snuff out the flicker of hope that remained. Emerging from the muck, she caught sight of a ghastly figure moving in the murky haze. It was a child, its eyes hollow, skin white like bone. It stared blankly, mouth twisted into what passed for a smile, hungry and expectant. "They want you to play," it crooned softly, spindly fingers reaching out, beckoning them closer. "No!" Mia cried, hiding behind her mother, the innocence in her tone jarring in the horror that surrounded them. "Stay back." Sarah placed herself between her children and the advancing figure, but it didn't waver. Instead, more figures emerged from the darkness, writhing and twisting in unnatural angles, all eyes and teeth, their intent as sharp as the wind that whipped past. "Let's play." Their voices harmonized, shrill with anticipation as they skittered closer, like leaves in a storm. Heart racing, Sarah turned her head, scanning for an escape. "Over there." "More shadows," Tyler said, pointing to a crack in the earth, where shadows seemed to pool like oil. "We can go through it." "Are you crazy?" Sarah barked, the thought of plunging deeper into the unknown twisted her guts. But the figures were too close. She could feel their chill on her skin, taste the thirst for their panic in the air. "Do it, Mom, please," Tyler cried. The boy leaned towards the shadowy void, eyes wide with fear and determination. "Now!" Sarah bellowed, without a trace of uncertainty. They dove toward the crack, the figures gasping as one, their hungry faces twisted in rage. As they passed through the darkness, Sarah felt a sudden jolt like electricity coursing through her. The whispers intensified, grasping at her mind. "Become one of us, keep going," she yelled, fighting against the seductive pull of those voices. "We're almost out." The void released them abruptly, throwing them into another clearing smaller and trapped within towering trees. The moon hung high, illuminating the ground littered with disturbing toys, cracked dolls, broken cars, and jagged pieces of plastic that seemed to watch them. "Mama, I don't want to be here," Mia whimpered, her voice quivering. "Neither do I, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, her eyes scanning the area. But then she noticed something, a glimmer in the moonlight. A swing set creaked eerily, as if begging them to come closer. "Mommy, look!" Tyler pointed, his voice suddenly brightening with familiarity. "Playtime." "No." The word flew from her mouth, more desperate now. "It's a trap. We need to move." But the laughter returned, filling the air with a cool, soothing lure that enveloped them like silk. Every instinct screamed to run, yet it felt so inviting. "Let us see what happens," Mia said, stepping forward, her expression drawn towards the swing set like a moth to a flame. "Mia, stop!" Sarah lunged, but before she could reach her, the ground beneath them shuddered. The shadows morphed, stretching and breathing, changing shape. "Mama!" Tyler yelled, his grip on her hand slipping. With panic rising, Sarah lunged forward and caught Mia by the arm just before she could cross the threshold of play. "What have you done?" Clenching her heart, Sarah turned as dark figures swarmed from the trees, torso twisted unnaturally, mouths wide in eerie laughter. "Join us, become one of us, it's so much fun." Would they hold on to their sanity, or give in to the sinister games? Sarah's vision narrowed as the darkness closed in, shadows creeping closer, the laughter melding into a single thunderous chorus, drowning every thought, every scream. Could they escape the depths of this nightmare, or would they lose themselves forever in the twisted embrace of the night? The shadows peeled back, revealing twisted forms that surged forward. Sarah's heart raced, blood pounding in her ears. She had to hold on to her children. "Run!" she screamed, pulling Mia tight to her chest as Tyler stumbled next to them. "Where?" Tyler shouted, panic in his voice. The swing set loomed behind them, a beacon of horror, but the trees surrounding them closed in like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches stretching like skeletal hands. "Anywhere but here," Sarah urged, darting to the left. But even as they ran, the darkness seemed to ripple like water, swirling into new shapes just beyond her vision. What once were faded outlines of children morphed into distorted faces, each more grotesque than the last. Their hollow eyes locked onto Sarah and her children, grinned wide with disdain. "Play with us. Forever." A chilling voice echoed, reverberating in the air, sliding into her mind. "No. We want to play," Sarah yelled, desperation raw in her throat. Yet the words seemed to savor the air, feeding the darkness more. It hungered, it craved. Ahead, a thicket appeared, a narrow path tangled with thorny vines. It might lead away from this nightmare. "There. We can go through." She led them, dragging her children toward the brambles. As she pushed through, the thorns snagged her skin, tearing into her with a sharp sting, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The chorus of laughter echoed louder, reverberating in her skull. "Mama! Hurry!" Tyler cried, his voice tinged with fear. Sarah turned just in time to see the twisted figures surge forward, uprooting stones and leaf litter in their wake. "It's like they're alive," Tyler breathed, horror dawning on his face as he watched their movements. They made it through the thicket, but what they found on the other side chilled Sarah's resolve. The ground was barren, dappled with dead leaves that crunched underfoot. Sooty smoke spiraled from cracks in the earth, carrying the scent of decay. "Look!" Mia pointed, her eyes wide. A dilapidated cabin sat at the edge of the clearing, shadows writhing around its rotting walls. It's an old house," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Seconds of indecision pounded within her, heart thrumming painfully against her ribs. "Can we hide in there?" Tyler suggested, his small voice shaking. Fear trembled within her. That cabin could be another trap. But the figures weren't far behind, their laughter sharp, slicing through her like glass. "We have to try." They dashed towards the cabin, the door hanging crookedly as if it were inviting their arrival. With one swift shove, Sarah burst inside, pulling her children quickly through the threshold. As she slammed the door shut, she pressed her back against it, taking a moment to breathe. The dimness inside was overwhelming, yet still, it was better than the chaos outside. She scanned the room. The air was stale and heavy with dust. Cobwebs draped from every corner, cocooning broken furniture. "Why do we come here?" Tyler asked, voice trembling. "I thought it would be safer," Sarah replied, though doubt gnawed at her. Could this place hold more horrors? The walls creaked and groaned, whispering secrets lost in time. Suddenly, the door rattled. Outside, the shadow figures pounded insistently, their laughter filling the small cabin, almost cheerful. The sound swallowed every ounce of comfort, creeping under her skin. "Mama, please." Mia whimpered, hiding behind her mother's back. "We need a plan, fast," Sarah said, glancing about for anything useful. A dusty old shotgun hung on the wall, but its rust spoke of forgotten safety. There had to be something else, something they could use against the darkness pursuing them. But as she frantically searched, she couldn't shake the feeling of something watching. "Mom," Tyler whispered, pointing slowly to the wall behind the shotgun. A wooden panel had shifted. Shadows flickered behind it. "Don't," Sarah warned, dread coiling in her gut. "Stay away from there." But curiosity took hold of Tyler, and before she could stop him, he reached out, prying the panel open. It creaked, revealing a narrow, dark space. With the sudden thump of thunder outside, an electric charge rushed through the air, and an even louder laughter erupted from within. "What's in there?" Tyler asked, wide-eyed. "I don't know," Sarah exclaimed, her body rigid. "We can't open it." But something in that darkness beckoned them. As the cabin shook, the walls groaned louder, shadows pulsing in time with the laughter from outside. Sarah felt trapped, cornered. Their only escape could lead to unimaginable terror. Would the shadows claim them if they remained still, or would they step into the unknown to find salvation? "Mama, what do we do?" Mia whispered, her fragile voice a lifeline in the rising storm of dread. As the laughter rose, drowning out her thoughts, she faced the ancient darkness, as it seemed to whisper, "Join us." What choice would she make when the other side of fear lay waiting? The wooden panel opened wider, revealing a pitch-black hollow that seemed to breathe. Shadows curled around the edges, reaching outward like desperate fingers. Sarah's heart raced, a sudden pulse of dread echoing in her ears. "Tyler, no!" she shouted, fear flaring inside her like a live wire. She lunged forward, grabbing her son just before he could step into that yawning void. "What if it's an escape?" Tyler protested, wide-eyed, his voice quaking with anticipation and fear. "No!" She felt the pull of that darkness, an inviting whisper clawing at her resolve. It promised safety, but behind that sweet tone lurked something sinister, and she could sense it. "Mama, please." Mia clutched Sarah's leg, looking up with terrified eyes. Sarah turned back to the door. It rattled again, more insistent. Each thud felt like a countdown, each laugh from the shadows outside sinking deeper into her bones. They were closing in, taunting, waiting for her to give in. She gripped the shotgun on the wall. It felt archaic, heavy with history. Would it even fire? Would it protect them from the darkness? Her pulse drummed louder in her ears as she wrestled with her choices. "Think, Sarah. You have to protect them," she whispered to herself, desperation clawing at her throat. Suddenly, the panel shifted again, the darkness behind it quivering as if alive. A low, growling whisper seeped from within, wrapping around her like tendrils of smoke. "Join us or face the eternal game." The words slithered into her mind. Time twisted, making her feel disoriented. What kind of game were they talking about? Was it true if they didn't play, would they be lost forever? "Mom, take the shotgun," Tyler urged, his small hands trembling. "I can't. What if I miss?" she managed, eyes darting to the door. The beings outside seemed to shift, their shapes growing larger, scarier in the dim light. Bloodshot eyes bugged out of rounded faces, their mouths curving into wicked smiles. "You have to," Tyler insisted, his voice rising, mounting urgency blending with panic. But as Sarah turned the shotgun in her grasp, a scream erupted from Mia. "Look! There are hands! Mom! They're coming!" Sarah's stomach dropped as she followed her daughter's gaze. Pale fingers slid through the cracks of the cabin walls, skeletal and bony, slowly creeping toward them. They dripped with shadows like ink, viscous and clinging. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, raising the gun. But the fear was mixed with a dawning realization, aiming at what wasn't tangible. "We're not playing with you." The figures outside shrieked in unison, an ear-piercing cacophony that seemed to shake the very foundation of the cabin. The walls groaned, and Sarah stumbled back, landing hard on the floor. Lightning struck, illuminating the room for a brief moment, revealing what lay hidden in the corners, broken mirrors, remnants of lives long past. High-pitched laughs danced with cruel playfulness, seeping from the walls. Forever, forever, with a determination fueled by dread, Sarah scrambled to her feet. "We have to leave now. We can't let them take us." The shadows outside thrummed with excitement, heightening their laughter. Time felt distorted, seconds stretching like hours as Sarah acted on instinct, pulling her children back toward the panel. "What about the dark?" Tyler said, his voice small. "It's our only chance," she insisted. But the voices became a symphony of chaos, echoing memories of Sarah's past, whispering secrets she wished to forget. The walls threatened to close in, trapping them in that cabin of horror. The panel loomed ahead, dark, foreboding. What awaited inside? Could there be anything worse than what the shadows outside promised? Before she could think, Sarah pushed Tyler and Mia ahead and charged toward the gaping darkness, heart racing. She felt the air thicken, the cabin quaking around them. "Let us go." But as she plunged into the blackness, a cold grip seized her ankle, pulling her back. "Mama, help!" Tyler screamed, his hand slipping away from hers. And just like that, terror cascaded around her. Was she damned to join the game? Would they all be lost forever in the joy of the shadows? As the fingers of darkness coiled tighter, she grabbed onto her children, ready to fight against the inevitable pull of despair. But deep within the shadows, something began to stir, a monstrous force that hungered, ready to claim its prize. What would she be required to sacrifice to escape this waking nightmare? The echoes of laughter surged as the void welcomed her deeply. And then the world went dark. The darkness consumed them, wrapping around Sarah and her children like cold, wet blankets. For a moment, it was all-consuming. Then, slowly, the shadows began to recede, light flickering like a candle's flame just beyond reach. "Mom?" Tyler's voice trembled. Sarah blinked, trying to clear her mind. She felt disoriented, nausea swirling in her stomach. Were they still alive? Mia. Tyler. She twisted in the dark, her heart racing as she searched for them. Panic surged, a tide of fear crashing against her resolve. "You're here." "Yes, Mom," Mia whimpered, her voice straining through the weight of the gloom. Sarah's hands shook as she reached out, her fingers eventually grasping Mia's small arm. "We have to get out," she urged, eyes darting around, hoping to see something, anything that would point them towards safety. As the darkness thinned, shapes emerged, revealing a cavernous space lit by an ethereal glow from above. They stood on damp earth, surrounded by strange carvings that twisted and turned along the walls, seemingly alive, breathing in the shifting light. "What is this place?" Tyler whispered, lips trembling. He had regained his grip on his sister's hand. I don't know," Sarah breathed. But her mother instincts flared, pushing fear aside as she took in their surroundings. "Stay close." Ahead, a narrow passage led into a shimmering light that pulsated like a heartbeat, and Sarah felt compelled to move toward it. Hoping it would take them away from this horror, they pressed on together, hurrying as the laughter and whispers faded, replaced by a quiet humming that resonated through the air. As they approached the light, laughter gathered behind them, echoing with unrestrained glee. "Come back. You can't leave the game so easily." The voices grew garbled, blending together, taunting them. "Faster," Sarah urged, fear creeping back into her heart. They pushed through the passage, narrowly avoiding the grasp of something vile, an icy finger brushing against Sarah's arm, urging her back into the grasp of the night. "Mom!" Tyler cried out, sensing her hesitation. "No. I want to let them take us." Her voice rang out, fierce and unyielding. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself forward, plowing ahead and pulling her children along. Suddenly, they burst into a clearing bathed in bright moonlight. It was surreal, a stark contrast to the shadows they had just fled. The air hung heavy with stillness, yet it felt safe, inviting. "Is this it? Are we free?" Mia whispered, hope blossoming in her voice. "I think so." Sarah felt the weight of worry ease for the first time. But still, something nagged, an unsettling sensation prickling against her skin. Ahead, a path wound through trees fluttering with color, reds and greens illuminated under the moon, shimmering as if welcoming them home. But then, she saw the shadows at the edge of the trees, writhing and twisting as if gathering back their lost game pieces. We have to keep moving. Before they could take a step, the shadows lunged, fierce and hungry, clawing toward them with the power of despair. Run! Sarah yelled, grabbing her children's hands. They dashed down the bright path, stumbling through the interference of the night. The shadows chased hard, thrumming against her heels, threatening to swallow them whole. She felt the pulse of fear rising within her, but as they ran, she discovered something igniting in her chest, a fire fueled by love, desperation, and the will to survive. They dashed toward the moonlit grove, the shadows screeching as they reached for them, but there was no stopping now. "Mom, look!" Tyler shouted. Ahead, a door-shaped light flickered at the end of the path, a doorway welcoming them to the world outside. It beckoned like an old friend. "Go!" Sarah urged, eyes wide, urging them forward. "We can make it." They sprinted as the darkness bellowed, crashing against the barrier of light. Shadows clawed at them, but they pressed forward, drawing courage from one another. Just a few more steps. With one final burst, they leaped toward the door. The moment they crossed the threshold, a blinding light erupted around them, consuming the shadows in a furious storm of brightness. Sarah shielded her eyes, and when she opened them again, they found themselves on the street of Oakridge, bright Halloween decorations twinkling overhead. The night had muted, laughter echoing from their neighbors as if nothing had ever happened. "Mom, we did it!" Mia squealed, her eyes bright, relief flooding her features. Breathless, Sarah gathered her children into her arms, the weight of terror slowly fading. Tears brimmed in her eyes. They were here. They had survived. "It's over," she breathed, her voice wavering as she clutched them tighter. But lurking behind them, a chill stirred the night air. She glanced back. For one fleeting moment, shadows danced at the edges of her vision, their whispers reduced to breathless promises. Always and forever, they echoed before the wind swept them away. "Let us go home," Sarah urged. And together, they turned away from the lingering darkness and back into the safety of their bright, warm home, where the Halloween spirit hummed cheerfully, and only laughter reigned. In that moment, Sarah knew they had escaped the night and its sinister secrets, but at what cost? Yet still, she held on to hope, a fragile, yet steady, flicker against the shadows to come. As dawn approached, bringing light to chase away the darkness, they stepped forward into a world filled with new beginnings, a world where love and resilience triumphed over fear. And as they walked, she made a vow. They would always find their way back, from every darkness, no matter how cruel. Because in them, a light would always remain. The end. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to catch the next exclusive stories that will leave you breathless. Smash the like button now to help us feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support for the channel, it means everything to us.